Good. Thank you. Thank you for
Awesome,
having me.
awesome. So glad to have you here, and definitely you as one of the leading millennial voices down there in Flint. We certainly want to talk about you, but let's set the scene. Let's let everybody know how smart you are. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Obviously, you were born and raised in Flint. Went to school at Central Michigan, and then did your graduate studies at Harvard University. Tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to bring you back to Flint.
Like I grew up on the north side of Flint.
Oh yeah.
I have a lot of siblings, have a lot of family that just became family in Flint.
Yep.
And so growing up, like I knew I wanted to come back to Flint. I knew I wanted
Yep.
to do it. And even if I didn't live here forever, I wanted
Right.
to give it back to Flint.
Exactly.
So I'm at Central, and at the time I was studying neuroscience. And so hearing like, oh, lead and water, I was like,
Hmm.
what? Because I have nieces and nephews. And I'm the middle child, so
Right.
everybody young children. Not all, but several. Um, and so seeing this, I felt like, what can I do? Several people felt like, what can we do? People in Flint, people everywhere. Like it was wonderful to see the outpour of love,
Yep.
um, especially at the height of the water crisis.
Yep.
I didn't know what public health was. Honestly, I was actually like in 2014. I was in Flint during the summer, spending a lot of time with my family. But that fall, I actually studied abroad. So I'm over in Asia, and I'm seeing, I'm still connected to my people. So I'm seeing
Right.
news articles and stuff about the water, and I'm like, what's going on? This is still during that first 18 months.
So
So I'm
back
like,
2014, 2015 time.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm. So I'm like, what's going on? That's how I kind of started learning about public health.
Right.
And then I wanted to find a school where I could do kind of public health and neuroscience, psychology, kind of put that all together. Um,
Exactly.
and there was only two schools, and I was like, I could go to Harvard. Like, moved
Make
out
that
third,
happen.
and I knew going into grad school, I definitely wanted to come back to Flint.
Definitely. So with your work there in Flint, and then you're kind of sent back down here. Once you get back to Flint, you're in the epicenter. You work with Dr. Mona. I'm having a brain freeze right now.
Dr. Hannah, Tisha.
Yep, yep. You're in the epicenter of what's happening. So now, obviously, you know what's happening with the water crisis and all that stuff. How does that make it even more challenging when we enter into this period in 2020? Once we add on to the water crisis a pandemic.
I mean, honestly, for everyone, I mean, some people saw a pandemic coming, but
Yep,
really, like, this is like everybody's saying unprecedented. Like
it
it's
is.
so hard. Dealing with the aftermath of the water crisis, it does make it a little more challenge, or it makes it more challenging. And in some ways, there are things that were learned during the water crisis. And I'm away at school studying, coming back and visiting, but there are
Right.
people who know so much more than me. In the city of Flint, who knew kind of, okay, these are the relationships we need to get back,
Yep.
back up and rejuvenated.
Yep.
Like we need to get people access to water. The expanded healthcare made it so that a lot of people were able to access healthcare, although not a lot of people are using healthcare services. So in some ways, it made it more difficult, especially, I mean, if you're still living in the city of Flint, depending on whether or not you had your pipes replaced, depending on how much you trust your water, just telling people to wash their hands and things like that. Ah, if you don't have clean water,
Yeah. Makes it
you're
hard.
house.
Yep. Flint has been challenged since 2014, 2015. Here it is, 6 years, 5 years, 6 years later. In that, Nestle's still providing bottled water, so that gets my little mind thinking, like, why are they still providing bottled water for the residents? Is that because the public has a whole huge level of mistrust with the government, or is that just meaning that the pipe replacement still isn't complete yet?
Well, that's a question. That's the $1 million question, honestly. And even being back, I can't I can't look at my nieces and nephews and tell them that the water is safe to drink
Right.
because I don't know. Um, and so I'll say it to you like I don't know. And there is some mistrust.
Yeah.
Well, actually a lot of mistrust. And to me, it doesn't look like there's enough effort to rebuild that trust,
Yep.
regardless of what a chemical test is saying. Like if people don't trust the water, like replace all the pipes, replace the pipes inside and outside of the homes,
Yep.
give people new appliances, like
Yep.
make sure people are set, and then let's talk about trust.
Yep.
And that conversation isn't being had. Like the pipes have not finished being replaced. There's been a challenge getting people to opt in. These are things that I'm hearing, but there's been challenges getting people to opt in. Some people have landlords. If you're a renter, you might want it, but if you're not in charge of the house,
If you don't own it,
you're having to deal with this still.
One of the things that we know through obviously with your education and what we've learned through the news is that like we know that lead in water impairs learning development and brain function and so many other things with young people from just a learning standpoint. So just from an educational standpoint, what sort of support is going on in Flint, or what sort of support is needed for those young people right now?
Yeah. So there are a lot of resources that have come into the city, resources that have expanded, like health insurance, which is, critical. Things like food assistance, critical. The Neurodevelopmental Center of Excellence, critical. But in some cases, we need more of the follow-up to happen. That capacity to be in place for kids to know how they are learning and how they are developing and things like that, and then connecting back to those schools. So that follow-up with service providers, expanding who is eligible. Some people are, how would I put it? Some people are starting to, make more money, get better jobs and things like that, and are actually not eligible for certain programs, or the age that they're getting a little older, and some of these programs just started, or they just started getting a lot of people to participate. And so if kids are aging out of these programs, that's creating additional challenges. I would say there certainly needs to be more support on the technology end, because like you're saying, we're in a pandemic. Schools are remote, healthcare. What you're doing, especially mental health in this pandemic.
Let me ask you one last question. As a professional public health official, you're in control. What's the first thing you're going to do so that we don't have to wait until 2021, 2022 to figure out what we're going to do? Like what will be your game plan coming from a public health perspective?
Well, I'm glad you.
And I know that's kind of broad.
And I'm happy to share, because I've thought about what am I going to do as an individual? What am I going to do to serve, and kind of what should we be doing? Because I don't see Black public health leaders. I don't see a Black Dr. Fauci, like where is Black Dr. Fauci?
Exactly.
Because our people are dying. Our people are being impacted by this virus. Our people are grieving. And so one thing I'll certainly be doing is focusing on my mental health. I have no shame in talking to a therapist. I love my therapist. I think she gives wonderful tips, especially around self-care. Like, how do you make sure you're able to thrive? We have not seen pandemic plus winter yet. And if
plus
you're
flu season.
right, plus flu season. And if you're in Michigan, hey, people are, down and depressed. You're not going to be seeing a lot of people. Like, we need to make sure we're prioritizing mental health, making sure we're voting safely, but voting, and making sure that we're okay regardless of what happens. Like that we're keeping that same energy either way. That's part of the game plan, and just loving on my people, because if this pandemic has shown anything, it's that like there is not a lot of time. We need to love our people. We need to be creative. We need to do the things that we enjoy,
Yep, definitely. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good personal game plan. I think some of my government officials can definitely take some tips from that, because I think that that's one of the things that I've noticed is that my mindset has changed during this pandemic. Normally happy type of self has not always been happy. It's not even just with the pandemic. On the other side, they keep killing people that look like us, So that's a whole nother show, and I don't even want to start that because we could be talking forever on that. But I definitely want to appreciate you and honor your time commitment. But thank you for joining us with the Everybody Mad podcast. Please don't let this be the last time, because we'd love to have your perspective as a part of the show, because we definitely want to elevate Black voices, certainly voices of the millennial generation, so that we can definitely be talking about the right stuff, giving people the right information so that we can do what we need to do to protect ourselves. So I definitely want to thank you, Jasmine, and shout out to you representing Flint Town and doing some great things, Harvard grad. So I definitely want to elevate you and show some Black girl magic with you. So thank you for adding your expertise to the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. Like, I'll be back.
I appreciate it.